welcome everyone to special Traction RIA online event featuring Tony Youngs talking about the hidden market. This is marketing month at Traction RIA. You combine with what Tony's teaching you on door knocking, how to talk to people, how to research properties, combine that with our Deal Machine Challenge, which is starting next week. You will be an unstoppable force. We'll get you out there in the neighborhoods, get you knocking on doors, get you talking to people, get you doing deals. That is what we are after. And Tony is magnificent at it. The number of people that told me the other day at our in-person event with Tony, like, wow, he just has a way with talking to people. I want to be like that. Tony knows what to say. He knows how to say it. He has a nice, easygoing approach. Exactly. You can emulate that as well. You don't need to become exactly like Tony, but he will show you how to bring the best out of you so that you can be doing that as well, because door knocking is insanely powerful when you're identifying the hidden market, and how he goes about researching that and identifying these properties is all incredible and all something that you need, especially as the market changes. So I hear all these people say things like, oh, I missed it. The market's not going up anymore. Well, wait a minute. When the market was going up, those same people were saying, oh, I can't get involved in real estate. The market's going up. So basically, those are the kind of people that are never happy and never think it's the right time. You have to ask yourself, when is now finally going to be the time? My argument is that this time is better than ever to be looking for our type of creative real estate deals, because people have less options than before. They're going to take even more kindly to you knocking on the door and saying, yeah, I can buy this house from you right now, and you don't have to list it and you don't have to wait, and it's incredible what you could do. So I want to tell you all to not be discouraged at all by any of the news that you hear out there. If anything, be the opposite of discouraged. Be encouraged and get out there and make it happen. And there's one more element to this as well. There's another reason why I invited Tony for October. It's because November and December are some of the best months for us as creative real estate investors. Those are the holiday months. Everybody shuts down. Nobody does anything. Yeah, exactly. So there's less and less people, investors included, reaching out to motivated sellers, offering to help them. Now, do you really think that they suddenly don't need help during the last 2 months of the year? Do you really think that as they sit at the dinner table at Thanksgiving and Christmas with their families and their friends, that they're not even more depressed about their situations and desperately need our help more than ever? And yet there's less help out there because everybody's distracted. So that's why we're coming into the best time of the calendar year to be putting deals under contract. There's one more element to that as well. You get the deals under contract now. If you're rehabbing them yourself, it takes a few months. You're ready for the spring selling season. If you're wholesaling them, you're wholesaling them to a rehabber to be ready for the spring selling season. Oh, wait a minute. If you're going to buy and hold it, or if you're going to wholesale to a buy and hold investor, you have that place ready for that springtime when a lot of people are thinking about moving and willing to move because it's the shift in schools and it's the new year and everything else. So basically, everything is stacked in our favor right now. That's exactly why we have Tony here. Tony Youngs, how are you?
Good, Tom. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you for being with us last week, and thank you for being with us now, because, you know, sometimes when people aren't local to where we're doing the events, like, hey, you're going to get Tony online because we want Tony. I said, we'll get Tony online. So here you are online.
All right. Well, thank you for having me, and I want to thank all your people for being here. I guarantee it'll be time well spent. So I'll make it worth your while. All right. So you were absolutely right about the spring buying season and being ready for that. And, you know, I always start a new rehab. I just finished 2 of them this week. And I always start a new one about this time because it is ready for the spring buying season. And we like to be first. So when we start a rehab now, we try to have it on the market by the end of February. So we're first. But anyway, so I'm ready to start teaching. You got anything else?
Just a couple of maybe house rules. Let me go over, and then I'll have you share your screen. So, gang, let's hold questions till the end. If you need anything, Carolina is also online in the chat. You can message me, or you can message Carolina. Would probably be the better option. So go ahead and message Carolina. Keep the chat. Not, some people get on these Zooms, they run the chat like it's a running sideshow, which is just distracting with all the messages popping up. So let's use the chat just for official things. We'll keep it going. Stay on mute unless you're asked to unmute at the end. We might do questions depending on time. That'll be up to Tony and the clock. And then I think we're in pretty good shape. If you need anything else, let me know. Let Carolina know.
Okay.
Cool. Let's make sure your screen is sharing there, Mr. Youngs.
Okay. Just let me move.
I see it. All right, good to go. I'll let you take it away. All right, gang, we're in Tony's very capable hands.
Okay, folks, well, welcome. On this cover screen, the first thing I'm going to show you is that every week, at least once a week, usually I like Sunday afternoons, but I plot a course of foreclosures. Now, Tom, can you see my mouse moving on the screen?
Yes, I can.
Oh, good. Okay, so if you look at the bottom left-hand corner, you'll see that there is a course of properties, and that was put together by MapQuest. What I do every week, I get a copy of the legal notices, and the legal notices come out in your daily newspaper. Well, you have to check with your county, but like my legal notices only come out in the Friday edition. And then there's other sites you could use, but you want to be able to get a list of the current foreclosures. I like the legal notices because I use other sites also, but the legal notices have the definite right information. So everything's up to date. It's kind of part of the foreclosure law process. And so when you're looking at the legal notices, you're getting the real deal. And what I do is I plot a course of about 8 or 10 foreclosures each week. And I will follow that course. And that gives me a reason to be out there. But what I'm really interested in is when I go to the first foreclosure, I will knock on the door and talk to the people and see if they would be interested in selling. And some of them aren't, but those are the people that usually end up losing their home because they're in a state of some sort of denial. And like Tom said, we could really help them. There's nothing worse than attending the foreclosure auction and you see all these houses getting sold or repossessed by the bank. And we had the opportunity to help those people to save them from losing their home. But what I really like is when I go to the first foreclosure, I will knock on that door, but then I will drive that entire neighborhood. And I'm looking for other houses with no pride of ownership. And every neighborhood has houses without pride of ownership. I've even been in $1 million plus neighborhoods, and there's at least one house with no pride of ownership. And we'll find out why in a few minutes. But when I go to that first foreclosure, I drive the entire neighborhood and I knock on all the doors of people with no for sale sign. But I knock on the door because there's no pride of ownership. Now, what is no pride of ownership look like? Well, maybe they haven't mowed their lawn. They might have high grass, overgrown bushes, peeling paint, a tarp on the roof. Those are indicators that something is going on in their life and they don't seem to care about the neighbor. I mean, the rest of the houses on the street are nice and well kept, but there's always one that looks less than. And that's what I'm targeting. And I knock on those doors too. Now, a lot of people will say, go driving for dollars. Well, I've been driving for dollars, and after a little while, I don't know which way to turn, which way to go, and I may stop and get some Starbucks, and then I'll say, oh man, there's a game coming on today. I think I'll go. Because actually, driving for dollars can get boring if you don't have a plan. So the plan is to follow this course until I'm done. And then I write down all the addresses of every hidden market property I find in those neighborhoods. And I always come home with at least 30 addresses. Now let's talk about this list. You can buy lists off the internet, and a lot of people do. But the same people, there's lots of people buying that same list. When you do what I'm teaching you, this list, nobody else has. Nobody can buy it unless they buy it from you, because you create it. And the way you create it is you go look at 8 or 10 foreclosures, you follow the course, and every time you go to a foreclosure, you drive the entire neighborhood, and you will find 3 or 4 other distressed houses with no for sale signs. And normally people would say, well, I never thought of, or I wouldn't even think of knocking on their doors. Well, that's okay, because I will. And that's why I get fantastic deals. And I'll show you how fantastic they are in a minute. So after I go to the first foreclosure and I drive the neighborhood and I've knocked on 4 or 5 doors in that neighborhood, then I'll go to the second foreclosure. And then I drive that neighborhood. And then the third, and I drive that neighborhood. So actually, the foreclosures are deciding what neighborhood I'm going to go in that particular day. And this map you're looking at in your bottom left-hand corner is about a 5-mile radius. Now, I've been doing the foreclosure hidden market business for 35 years, and I have never saturated that 5-mile radius. Never. I mean, and if I was to start in the top left-hand corner and just start driving neighborhoods and until I go to every neighborhood in that 5-mile radius, I would still not even saturate that area, because there's always new opportunities coming in. Here's proof. When you're looking at a course, and that's where the foreclosures happen to be. The following week, I'll plot 10 more, and it looks a little different, but that's new foreclosures. And then a week later or a month later, I plot 10 more, and there's more foreclosures. And for 35 years, there's always new foreclosures. So that's why a 5-mile radius can produce new opportunities every single month. And it's because people go into some situation. They have financial troubles. They may have a death in the family. They may have a transfer or loss of job, or just, all kinds of reasons. And you've got to believe that there's always going to be new opportunities. Otherwise, you're going to start thinking, oh, I've been out there. There's nothing out there. I've already seen what's out there. And you'll listen to the lies of the universe. You have got to believe that there's always going to be new opportunities. And here's the good news. I get at least on this list, out of my list, there's always at least 2 of them that are probates. And they're usually before probate begins, and you can start talking to the children or the heirs or the relatives before it ever becomes a public probate. And I get them under contract before that even begins. Because here's how it happens. Let's say you knock on a door and you find out there's no one there because it's vacant. So you go to the neighbor's house and you say, hey, oh, by the way, Tom, if you ever have any interruptions or questions, go ahead and jump in anytime. But let's say that I go to this vacant house and nobody's there. So I go to the neighbor, and the neighbor, I'll say, listen, I'm looking to buy a home in the area, and the house next door to you seems to be vacant. Do you know anything about it? And they'll say, oh, that man died 2 weeks ago. And so then I'll ask the neighbor if they know if they had any relatives. Are they local? Or are they out of state? And usually they don't know a whole lot, or they won't give you that kind of information because they don't know you. But we can find all that information because of the internet. And but I'm already contacting the relatives and the heirs before probate ever begins. And I end up with at least 2 probate deals that I actually get under contract per month. And we'll talk about some of those tonight. But so anyway, that's what I do, folks. So that's the first thing that you need to do. And you must have discipline. There's times when I plot the course on a Saturday night and I'm planning to go out Sunday morning or Sunday afternoon. And I go to church and I come home and have a nice lunch with my wife and daughter. And then I plan to go out and follow the course. Well, after 35 years, every week, sometimes I don't feel like it. But I always force myself to at least go to the first property, because that's called discipline. And my very first seminar that I ever attended way back in 1986, one thing I do remember is that speaker said, you have to have a system and you have to have discipline. I knew what the system was because he was teaching it to me. And what I just did for you is taught you the system. You have to plot a course and follow it. That's the system. But the discipline, I don't think you can buy that. You can, it has to come from within. You have to say to yourself, I don't care if there's a football game on today. I'm going to at least go to the first property. And then what happens? You start getting excited because in that neighborhood you find a couple of good, promising hidden market opportunities. It's just like when you get a gym membership. Sometimes you just don't feel like going today. You've been doing good, you've been making it there, but there's always times when you don't feel like going. And the discipline is you say, well, I'm going to go. I may not do my full workout, but I'm going to go at least do one exercise. And once you start, the energy kicks in, and then you do the whole workout. So that's the discipline I'm talking about. Okay, now on your screen, you should see a typical neighborhood. Let's say that this property right here, where my mouse is the foreclosure. So the course, the map took us to this foreclosure. So we'll knock on the door, we'll talk to the people, but remember that person is also getting a bunch of letters from other investors asking if they want to sell. So that foreclosure is competitive. But here's the good news about door knocking. If you were to ask that owner, have you got any letters from anybody? They'll say, yeah, here's a whole stack of them, 30 or 40. And I'll say, well, how many people came to your door? They'll say, you're the only one. And, they've been saying that for 35 years. And you know why? because people are scared of door knocking. They would rather have bamboo shoots driven under their fingernails rather than knock on a door. And I'm glad. I'm so glad you're afraid, because I am getting wealthy every day because you're afraid. I'm the only one, I feel, that is out there door knocking. And I've knocked on 400 plus doors per year for 30 plus years. And I'm going to keep doing it. I don't care if everybody else says I'm not going to do it. But I'll tell you what, wait till you see the kind of deals you'll get. And you, like me, will definitely say, by gosh, I'm knocking on doors. Now, when I teach you, I'm going to teach you how to do it safe. I know what doors not to knock on when I'm out there. And here's what I do. So let's say we went to the foreclosure, we knocked on the door, then we're going to drive all this neighborhood, because look, there's a whole bunch of houses in this picture. And what you've got to believe is that in this neighborhood, somebody is having financial trouble. In that neighborhood, somebody has probably just died. In that neighborhood, somebody's going through a divorce. In that neighborhood, somebody is about to file bankruptcy. In that neighborhood, somebody just got a code enforcement sticker on their house. And then in this neighborhood, there's a landlord that isn't collecting the rent probably. And he may be getting fed up with his tenant and ready to sell. So I see opportunity when I look at this picture, and you have to believe it, because there's nobody holding up a red flag saying, hey, I'm that person. We have to drive through there and try to figure out which ones are having trouble. And the high grass, no pride of ownership, that's how I discovered the hidden market, because I started knocking on those doors. Okay, in that neighborhood, there's somebody unemployed. There's somebody going through a divorce. Somebody just died. Somebody's filing bankruptcy, landlord not collecting rent, somebody getting code violation. And in this neighborhood, somebody is too old and can't take care of their property. So when we talk to them, we offer to get them a place like a condo or even an assisted living place. Will help them to get into those by buying their house, where they don't have to worry about taking care of the property. Okay, if you remember, my very first deal, I made a year's wages compared to my job. I used to be an aircraft mechanic for Lockheed, and it says Burbank, California, but they have a division in Marietta, Georgia, and I used to work there. And I was making $27,000 back in 1985 and 86. I was making $27,678. But after I attended that seminar, and they taught me how to buy foreclosures with no money or credit, I went out looking at the foreclosures, because the very first chapter taught me how to find the foreclosures. And I found my legal notices, and on my way home from Lockheed, I would get off work at 3:30 in the afternoon. So on the way home, I would go look at 2 foreclosures. And I wasn't really trained. I didn't know how to talk to the people or do anything, but I at least wanted to drive by and look at them. And my third week after the seminar, I was driving to a foreclosure, and when I pulled up, the grass was 3 feet high, the bushes were overgrown, the gutters were falling off of the roof, the paint was peeling, and so I thought it was vacant. So I pulled in the driveway. I wanted to go up and physically touch a foreclosure. And so then when I was looking around, I went to the backyard to see what it was like, and there was a 6-foot privacy fence. So what I did is I I couldn't see over the fence. So I went to the gate. It was unlocked. I went into the backyard. The grass was 4 feet high. It was like a jungle. And then I started looking in the windows. The first window I came to, it looked kind of dark inside there. I didn't see hardly much of anything. Then I went to a second window and I noticed there was some furniture and some belongings left. And then when I went to the third window, some lady was staring back at me. She was sitting in a chair right inside the window, and she looked at me, and I looked at her, and I jumped back, going, "Oh my God, it's not vacant." So I pointed to the back door, and I went and knocked on the back door. And she came to the door and says, "Could I help you?" I said, "Ma'am, I am so sorry. I saw this paper was scheduled to go up for auction in the newspaper. And when I drove by, I thought it was a vacant house. I'm so sorry. I was snooping around. I had no idea someone lived here." She goes, "Well, it is in foreclosure, but if you'd like to buy it, you can buy it from me." And she grabbed my hand and says, "Come on in. I'll show you around." And she took me through the house. I had no idea what I was looking at, what I was looking for. All I knew is I was going, how did I get in this situation? And I felt uncomfortable. I mean, it was dark. I didn't know it at the time, but the power had been shut off. And I knew the house smelled really bad, and there was so much junk in all the bedrooms. And she just kept showing me around, and I was just thinking, man, I got to get out of here. I need to go home and study chapter 2. Because I read chapter 1, that taught me how to find foreclosures, but chapter 2, that's probably the next step. And I hadn't read that yet because I was too busy working at my job. So I wasn't ready for that. But then she pulled me out on the front porch after she introduced me to her husband, who never said a word. On the front porch, she said, "How much would you give me for this house?" And I had no clue. I said, "I don't know. How much do you want?" She said, 85. I said, "Is that a good deal?" She goes, "Yeah, all the homes in this neighborhood go for 125, but we'll let you have ours for 85. Now, I knew it needed work, but I didn't know how much because I didn't know how to estimate. I haven't been to a Tom Zeeb seminar yet. And so I didn't know how to estimate repairs that day. And so I don't know how I came up with this, but I just figured if I made a lower offer, she would turn me down and I could go home and read chapter 2. So I just, out of the blue, I said, "Well, I'm looking for something around 65,000. And she said, "Well, we're going to hold out and see if we can get 85. Thank you very much." So I went down the stairs. I got in my truck. I'm backing down the driveway. And as I'm pulling out of the driveway, somebody started screaming at me. And I looked back, and it was that lady chasing me down the driveway going, "Stop, stop." So I rolled down my window and I said, "What is it?" She goes, "My husband said we'll accept your offer." "What offer? Did I make an offer?" And she goes, "Yeah, we'll take 65. So I said, "Well, what do we do now?" And she said, "Well, I don't know. You're the one that wants to buy the house." I said, "Well, I think we need some paperwork or something. I better go, I got to go home and get something together." She said, "When will you be back?" And I said, "In about a day or two." And she goes, "A day or two? Do you realize that this home is going up for auction next Tuesday?" And this was the Wednesday before. So she said, "We thought you might be able to come back tonight." And I said, "Well, I'll see what I can do." Now, I backed out of the driveway and sped off at 100 miles an hour, making sure she couldn't read my tag number because I didn't know if I was coming back. I really didn't have plans. Number one, I did not have 65,000. But so I just figured, gosh, I got to get out of here before I get myself in trouble. But then when I got home, I picked up the home study system, and it was called How to Buy Foreclosures with No Money or Credit. So I started thumbing through the system trying to figure out, how do you do this with no money? And it talked about the techniques that you've heard for years. If you get it under contract, you can assign the contract to somebody who does have the money. If you get it, or it talked about you could take over their loan subject to. And so I thought, well, I don't know, maybe I'll get it under contract. And then I didn't know how to write a contract. So what I did is I went to the chapter that taught me how to write a contract. They had a blank contract with several filled out versions to tell you what to put in each line. And then there was a whole section on clauses. What kind of contingencies do you put in your contract? And I looked at some of the deals the author had done successfully, and I used those same clauses. And some of those were kind of like escape clauses. Like, I figured out that a lot of us all have fear. We have fear about making offers. You know what really the number one fear is for newbies? Their fear is, oh my God, what if it gets accepted? Well, we're going to eliminate that fear, because if you're not making offers, you're not making money. So I've got to get you out of that fear of what if it gets it accepted. And the way you do that, I teach you to create a clause. I teach you to create a clause to conquer a fear. Like, some people have a fear of, what if I buy a house and it has a major foundation problem? Well, you put a clause in the contract that says this offer is subject to my approval of an inspection. Another fear you might have is, what if I can't get the money? Well, you put a clause in, this offer is subject to financing. You have another clause another fear that you might say, well, what if I buy a house with liens? It has a major lien on it. Well, that's virtually impossible, in my opinion, unless you do your own closing, like a tabletop closing. But I haven't seen or done that in years. But that's how you get stuck with liens. But if you go to a closing, they're going to let you know ahead of time if there's any liens, and you can back out because you have a clause that says this offer is subject to my approval of the title report. Okay, so that first deal, I went ahead and filled out the contract, and I went back over to the lady's house and I got them to sign it. And I had the intention of just wholesaling the contract to another investor. But then when I got home, I kept studying the system and listening to the cassette tapes, trying to educate myself on what is the next step. So it says if it's close to auction day, you need to call the foreclosure trustee, and you need to find out how much the payoff of the loan is and how much the back payments are. So I contacted the trustee and I said, hey, how much are the back payments on 3011 Hillcrest Court? They said, well, are you the owner? I said, no. They said, well, we can't tell you that. You have to get permission from the owner, else we can't talk to you. So I said, oh my God, is there any other place I can get that information? Because I've got that house under contract. And they said, well, you've got it under contract? If you bring us the contract, if it's a legitimate contract, we can give you all the information you need. So I took it down. that attorney looked at my contract and said, "Whoa." He goes, "You're going to make $50,000 on this house." I said, "Really? When?" And he goes, "What are you going to do with the property?" I said, "Well, I guess I'm going to fix it up." I was going to wholesale it, but when he said I could make 50,000, I was interested. So he said, "Well, who's doing the closing?" And I said, "What exactly is a closing?" Because I hadn't read that chapter yet. So he said, "Look, if you get the owners to come to my office at lunchtime tomorrow, I'll get my secretary to prepare a warranty deed. We'll get them to sign it, and I'll record it over across the street at the courthouse." So, because we're running out of time. And he goes, "You need to bring a certified check for $6,032. I said, "What's that for?" He goes, "Well, you don't have time to get a new loan." So he goes, "What you need to do is just go ahead and bring the note current. Just make up the back payments. That's $3,032." And then he said, "And the owner owes 62,000, and you have it under contract for 65. So you've got to give them $3,000 when they come to my office and sign the deed. So just bring a certified check for $6,032 and we'll do the closing." Well, I didn't have $6,032. So I kept asking, I kept making excuses in front of that attorney. The attorney was the trustee for the bank. And I said, "Well, I got to do a title search." He goes, "Hell, I've already done one. Here it is. That house is loaded with equity. The taxes are current. They only owe 62,000. It's got to be worth over 100. He goes, "There's tons of equity in that house." So he says, "You don't have the money, do you?" And I said, "No." He goes, "Have you been to one of those no money down seminars?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Well, it's obviously working." He goes, "Can't you borrow the money from your mom or your dad?" I said, "That's a good idea." So my dad is a millionaire. I go to him and I say, "Dad, I got this great deal. If you put up, I need $6,032. If you loan me the money, I will pay you back 7,500. He goes, "Get away from me." And then I said, "Okay, Dad, how about 9,000? You loan me 6,032. I'll pay you back 9,000 after I fix up the house." He goes, "You don't have no time to fix up a house." He goes, "You've got a job." And I said, "Yeah, I get off at 3:30 every day. I'll go over there and work on it." He goes, "What house?" I said, "Look, I'll double your money. If you loan me the money, I'll pay you back double." And he said, "What house? I haven't seen no house. I don't even know if there is a house." So I took him over there and he saw the house and he goes, "Oh my God, that's it?" He goes, "It looks haunted." I said, "No, Dad, there's real ghosts. I mean, people living in it." I said, "Come on, I'll show you the inside." So we knocked on the door and I asked the lady if I could bring my father in because he's going to help me, you know, do the painting and everything. She goes, "Yeah." And my dad was going, "What is that terrible smell?" I said, "Dad, that's the smell of money." And he teased me about that for years. He goes, every time I got another deal, he'd go, "Does it smell like money?" Because whenever you buy a house that smells, you always make money. So just remember that. If you go into a house and you go, "Oh God, this is terrible," just remember your brain should be going cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. Okay, so the reason I got a year's wages on my first deal is my dad gave me the money. I went ahead and closed on it and I fixed it up and kept it as a rental because I didn't have any money to fix it up. So I just got a few gallons of paint. I painted the walls, I painted the outside, I painted the windows, I cleaned all the appliances with Easy Off oven cleaner. I wiped down the cabinets with white vinegar, and I mopped the floors a couple of times, and I shampooed the carpets 2 or 3 times, and then I rented it out. And then I went down to the bank and I said, I want to refinance my house. And I did a cash out refi. And when they said, we'll only loan you 80% of what it appraises for. Well, it appraised at 126.9. They said, we'll loan you 100,000. And that was back when interest rates were 9%. But I took the loan. They gave me a loan for 100. That new loan paid off the old loan that I took over subject to. And then they took out closing costs and handed me this check for $27,566. And so I made a year's wages, and the whole thing took 88 days. Okay, so I didn't quit my job at that time. Everybody was going, oh man, that's beginner's luck. Don't quit your job. So then I took that 27,000 and I split it with my father. I gave him 14,000 because he loaned me 7,000 to buy that first deal. I promised I'd double his money. So I gave him 14,000. Then I couldn't get rid of him. Everywhere I went, I couldn't even go look for deals without him chasing me, going, come on, son, let me put up the money. Come on. So I said, get away from me. I got my own money. So I found a second foreclosure where the back payments were $5,400, but the homeowner said, give me $500 and it's yours. So I took over his loan. I reinstated it. I took over his loan subject to, and then I did the same thing. I fixed it up and did a cash out refi. I got a check for $17,000, but I did it with my own money. The whole thing cost me about $9,000, but I got a check for 17. But now I have a second rental with 20% equity, so, and a positive cash flow. So then I did a third deal, and I went to do a cash out refi, and the bank said, no, we're not giving you any more loans. You're just taking too many loans real quick. They said, if all these homes go vacant, you're gonna just leave us holding the bag. I said, that will never happen. He goes, oh, well, that's not how we think. So he wouldn't let me refinance. So I put it up for sale and I got a check for $52,000. So then the following month, I got 2 houses under contract, and I was so busy trying to fix those up that I played hooky from Lockheed. And Lockheed called me and said, hey, did someone die in your family or something? I said, no, why? They said, well, you haven't been to work in 12 days. I said, I forgot about Lockheed. I was so busy doing real estate. So that's when I resigned. On my 5th deal, I quit my job and did it full time. And what you're looking at on the screen is my money machine for the next 15 or 20 years. What I would do is I would get the legal notices. I would send letters to 150 people in foreclosure in my county. But all the ones in my zip code, I would plot a course and go knock on their doors. People sometimes had zero equity in their homes when they were in foreclosure because they had a second mortgage. So going to RIA meetings like Tom and Carolina's club meetings, I would go to investor club meetings and I learned how to discount liens and second mortgages. So folks, it is so important you continue to attend those meetings. There's always new stuff coming down the pike, and you never stop learning. You should always keep learning because you're fine-tuning this money machine you have. So I learned how to discount second mortgages and any liens on a property. So these are homes that other investors would run from because there was no equity. But I would go the extra mile and contact these lien holders and offer to pay off the liens at 10 cents on the dollar. And I was creating profit in deals that had no profit. And it was very exciting because you have so much leverage when you're discounting these liens and second mortgages, because if the home does go to auction, they usually get wiped out. Okay, now there's always going to be people's doors you knock on that are in foreclosure, but they just deny they're in foreclosure. They'll say, "Oh, no, we're not selling. We're fine. Thank you." So what I do is I call the bank and see if they want to sell the loan. Banks sell defaulted loans all the time. And then I would attend the foreclosure auction for all the people that would not sell to me before the auction. That by far is the best way to buy, is buy before the auction directly from the homeowner, which is what I do. But I would attend the auction to see which ones made it to the auction. And I tried bidding a couple of times, but I said, that is ridiculous, because what I'm doing is paying more than every other investor is willing to pay. So I said, bidding at a foreclosure auction, it may work for you, but it just didn't tickle my fancy. I like to make big profit. So, but I still to this day attend every foreclosure auction, because at the auction, they tell me all the homes that go back to the bank. So that brings me to the next one, is the very day after the auction, I would send offers to the houses that were repossessed by the lenders. So if the auctioneer said going once, twice, sold back to the lender, I would just fax offers, but then eventually fax machines went out and email. So I email offers to the banks. Now, just like Tom was saying, October, November, and December is a great time to get started with real estate. But there's a second reason. Do you know that right now it's not, we're not very successful with buying houses directly from the bank the day after the auction as we were back in 2008 through 2012. That was when you could get deals accepted by the banks all the time. But then what happened is, the reason it's a good time is because the banks have to clear out some inventory before the end of the year to balance their books. So this is a great time to even pursue bank-owned properties. And when you go out and look for hidden markets, you're going to see vacant houses with little 8.5 by 11 sheets of paper on the door saying this house has been winterized, but there's no for sale sign. Those are bank-owned properties, and there's hundreds of them. Now, folks, I go door knocking all over the United States, and every state I go to, there is vacant bank-owned homes in some of these neighborhoods I go to. Okay, so at the auction, I find out all the houses that go back to the bank, and you're the very first to know. So you don't ever have to buy a list of REO properties, bank-owned properties. You don't have to buy a list. If you go to the auction, you know before the bank knows that it's bank-owned. If the auctioneer says going once, twice, sold back to the lender, and you call that bank and say, "Hey, you just repossessed a house, I'd like to buy it," they say, "We don't own that house." I'll say, "Oh, yes, you do." Because we know before the bank even knows when we're at the auction. Now, another reason I go to the auctions is because a lot of people, they will file bankruptcy to stop their home from being auctioned off, because that's allowed. So if you're in foreclosure and they're going to auction your house off tomorrow, if you file bankruptcy, they won't auction your house. They can't. It's against the law. So I go to the auctions to get a list of all the people that file bankruptcy, because I am a bankruptcy expert. I learned all about bankruptcy. And the reason I did is because when you get active in the business will teach you what you need to learn more about. And what taught me that is knocking on doors of people in foreclosure. I'd say, hey, would you be interested in selling your home? No, we're just going to file bankruptcy and we'll get to keep our home. And then I'd say, okay. So I'd walk away. And then 2 months later, I'd see that very home get auctioned off and the people would lose their home. So I said, how could that happen? So the business taught me to learn everything I could about bankruptcy. And I did. And it catapulted my success, because then when I knocked on the door, if they said, oh, we're just going to file bankruptcy, I get to keep my home. And I say, oh, really? Do you realize your home can still go to auction in 2 to 3 months? And they'll say, how's that? And I'll start explaining. And the next thing you know, they're inviting me into their home to hear more about what I'm talking about. So do you see how getting involved in the business will teach you what you need to learn more about? And where better to learn more about things than your local real estate investors club? So anyway, and then the seventh way that I profit is when I'm doing the foreclosures, I'm finding all the hidden market properties with no for sale signs in those neighborhoods. Now, here is a picture of the auction that I attend. This is a foreclosure auction. This guy with the circle around his head is the auctioneer. So between 9 o'clock and 4 o'clock on the first Tuesday of every month, this guy is auctioning off houses, people that are in foreclosure, behind on their payments, but they refuse to sell to me or you because of denial. And this guy is auctioning off their houses to all these people. Now, who are all these people? Those are real estate investors with tons of money. It's not the same in every state. They have auctions in every state, but at my auction, if you're the winning bidder, you have to pay all cash or certified funds on the spot instantly. Now, what I mean by other states, like say North Carolina, you only have to pay 10% if you're the winning bidder, but you've got to get the rest of the money within 10 days. And then there's some states I've been to where you pay 10% down today, and then you have till 5 o'clock to come up with the rest of the money. Some states, 30 days. So, but the one I attend in Marietta, Georgia, is you have to pay all cash. So these guys who buy these houses, they have lots of money. So this is where I build my buyers list. These people are not wishy-washy. You know, when you do the hidden market, you're going to be bombarded by people with money wanting to back you. And that's a good problem to have. But even your next door neighbor is going to say, hey, you're always coming up with deals. I got money in the bank. Would you be willing to let me partner with you? And then when you get a deal, you go to them and they go, well, are you sure it's a good deal? I need to speak to my wife first. So that's what I call wishy-washy. But you try to get one of these guys, they'll go, yeah, I'll take it. Well, don't you want to see it first? No, man, I'll take it. You know, because when they bid on these houses, they haven't even seen the inside of most of the houses they bid on, because they're not going to knock on the door of a homeowner and say, hey, I'm going to bid on your house tomorrow. Can I see the inside? They just don't do that. They drive by and just hope the inside doesn't need a lot of work, but they do. You'll find out tonight. Okay, so this is a great place. I highly recommend you attend auctions. Okay. Now, this house is a great example. Now, this is a hidden market. I was driving this car, and that's why there's a car in the driveway. But This does not have high grass. It really doesn't have overgrown bushes, but when I drove through the neighborhood, it just seemed to be vacant. So I just sort of sense things when I'm going through neighborhoods. And so I pulled in the driveway because the best way to find out if a house is vacant is to knock on the door. If they do answer, you just simply say, hey, I am looking to buy a home in the neighborhood. I love the style of your house. Would you be interested in selling? But when I knocked on this door, nobody answered. So I looked in this window right here, and there was garbage bags, black plastic garbage bags piled to the ceiling. Must have been 30 of them. And I don't know what it was at the time. So I went to look in other windows. I couldn't really see nothing. It was very dark in the house. I went around to look at the meter to see if the electrical meter was moving, and it was very slowly, but it was moving. So then I went and wrote a note and tacked it on the door, the side door, not the front door. And then I went over to talk to the neighbor. I said, Mr. Neighbor, I said, I'm looking to buy a home in the area, and that home next door to you seems to be vacant. Do you know anything about it? He goes, oh, it's not vacant. He goes, there's a guy that lives there, and he has 30 cats. I said, 30 cats? He goes, yeah. He goes, that house is so disgusting. It reeks. I mean, the whole neighborhood reeks because of that house. So I have reported him to the code enforcement because we want something done about it. And so I said, okay, you think he might be interested in selling it? He goes, I have no idea. And so I said, thank you. And I went over and I made sure my note was on the door and I left. I went looking for more properties. So I didn't get a call off the letter. So I went back the next day. And this is where most people fail. They find great deals, but they never follow up. Here's a great example of follow up. I went back the next day and my note was gone. I knocked on the door, nobody answered. So I wrote another note and then I left. And then I came back the next day. I knocked on the door, nobody answered. The note was gone. I wrote another note. Then I skipped a day. I went back 2 days later and he was home. And I said, hey, man, I really love the style of your house. I said, would you be interested in selling it? He goes, oh, I can't. He goes, the code enforcement is going to condemn the property. I said, what do you mean? He goes, well, they gave me a warning that if I don't fix it up in 60 days, they're going to condemn the property. And I said, what are you going to do? He goes, I can't fix it up. He goes, I don't have any money. And he goes, but I've talked to my brother. My brother said I could move in with him and we're going to let the house get condemned. I said, what do you mean condemned? The house looks fine. He goes, oh, the inside is terrible. I said, can I see the inside? He goes, well, it's too dangerous. I said, why? He goes, the floors are so rotten that there's holes in them and the boards are very rotten. He goes, all the toilets and sinks have been leaking for over 10 years and things are starting to fall through, including the toilets. I said, I've seen worse. I said, let me see the inside. He goes, man, I don't know. I'm afraid you'll get hurt. But I kept talking him into it. He finally said, okay. I don't say I didn't warn you. So we go in the side door. And remember, in this window, there's 20 or 30 big plastic bags. And as soon as I walked in, there were roaches falling off of the ceiling because those plastic bags were household garbage. He had no money to pay for garbage pickup. So he just threw it in that room. And then when I went through that, I go into that next section of the house and things are just jumping out at me. And I thought it was rats, but it was cats. And then he takes me down further down the hall, and there's one light bulb dangling from the ceiling on a wire. And he goes, "That's the only light that works." And uh, I opened up the fuse panel box in the hallway, and it had those Coke bottle screw-in type of fuses. There was about 6 or 8 of them. So I knew that was bad. And then I started to go back to the master bedroom, and I stepped on some rotten wood and my foot went through. And I said, "I've been far enough." So he goes, "See, I told you." But really, I was turned on because when I go in houses like that, I get turned on. So we stepped outside. This is my car. I have blank contracts and I was ready to make an offer. I said, "How much would you take for the house?" He goes, "Look, man," he goes, "You don't want this house." He goes, "It really needs to be torn down." I said, "No, man, just give me a price." He said, "I don't know, 20." Now, folks, that's $160,000 neighborhood that day. That's what homes were worth. And he said, 20? I pulled out a blank contract and I wrote up an offer so fast for 20, and I went over it with him right there in the driveway. And I said, "All you got to do is sign right here and you'll get 20,000 cash." He goes, "Well, this was my mom's house, and when she died, she left it to me and my brother. Does he have to sign too?" And I said, "Is his name on the title?" He goes, "Yeah." I said, "Yeah, he has to sign." So he goes, "Let me call him." He calls his brother and says, "Hey, there's a guy here giving me 20,000 cash for this house. He goes, "Could you come over? Because you're going to have to sign it too." And he goes, "I'll be right over." So when he got there, the guy had a few little contingencies he wanted to talk about. He said, "Now listen, that house is full of stuff." He goes, "There is nothing in that house that is going to my house." He goes, "Do you understand?" And I said, "What are you saying? Are you saying you just want to leave everything?" And he said, "Yes." I said, "Okay." I said, "I will clean out the house if you just take what you want." He goes, "We don't want anything because I'm not allowing him to bring anything in that house to my house." So I said, "I'll take care of it." So the guy signed it. So now both brothers signed it, and I just bought a house for 20,000. So as soon as I went to closing, and here's my documents right here, 20,000 purchase price. So then what I did is, after closing, I immediately got a dumpster. I got some day labor to come over and start cleaning the house out. And some investor comes by and says, "Hey, what are y'all doing?" I said, "Well, we're fixing up the house." He goes, "Are you the owner?" I said, "I am now." He goes, "What, you just bought it?" He goes, "I didn't even know this house was for sale." I said, "Well, you should come to my seminar." He goes, What are you talking about?" I said, "Well, it's a hidden market." He goes, "Look, I'm a We Buy Ugly Houses franchisee, and I'm rehabbing a house in the back of this neighborhood." He goes, "If there's anything for sale in this neighborhood, I know about it." So he goes, "How did you get this house?" And I said, I just talked to the owner." So he said, "Look, I will buy this house from you in as is condition. How much do you want?" I said, "Well, I don't want to sell. I want to keep it." So the next day, he must have found out how much I paid, because he came back and said, "I'll give you 50,000 for this house." He goes, "I know what you paid for it. You're going to make 30. I would have made 30,000 if I'd have took his offer without doing any work. But I decided to fix it up. And what happened is I fixed it up. This is the kitchen after the boys cleaned it out. So it still looks horrible. Now this kitchen sink is actually underground about 6 inches. I mean, it's below floor level because it had been leaking so bad. There's holes all in the floor. here's the other side of the kitchen. And so said I took this complete wall out. I just knocked it out, and I fixed it up. I put 62,000 in this house, and that's the new kitchen. And I took the kitchen sink that was over here, and I put a new sink in the island, and put all new flooring, new paint. I put brand new electricity, brand new plumbing, brand new heating and air, brand new paint, flooring, windows, you name it. No, I only had to get a couple of windows. So 62,000, and then for a second, because there's sound effects. Okay, now, by the way, the code enforcement came by once a week because they said just because you bought the house doesn't mean we go away. So he goes, we want to see that you're fixing this house up correctly because we were going to condemn it. So on the outside, this one wall had lead-based paint and it was flaking bad. So the code enforcement, they said, you're going to have to build one of those big plastic tents and contain all the flakes, and you have to wear hazmat suits. So I said, well, what I usually do is I don't ever scrape the paint. I just seal it in. I just put new plywood over the top. Is that okay? He said, oh, yeah, that'll be good. Probably even better. So that's what I do. I put T111 siding. I needed 9 sheets, and it wasn't very expensive at all. So it was only that one wall because that was the one that gets all the sun. So I sealed in the lead-based paint by going over it with new plywood. And then the house was finished, and I put it on the market because that other investor finished his house and put it on the market at $189.9. Now remember, when we bought them, the comps were $160. But he put it on the market at $189.9, and he had 15 people look at it the first day. So I put mine on the market for $199.9, and I got 3 offers the first day on the MLS, and I sold it for $200 cash, and so I netted $107,000. Now, I was rehabbing a house back in this neighborhood. I was rehabbing a house in the back of this neighborhood, and I would drive by this house often, not thinking much about it. But one day I noticed that window is always open, the window to the right side of the front door. And when I drove by at nighttime, there was a light on in that window, but there was never any other lights on, no matter how many times I passed by this house. So I went and knocked on the door one day, and nobody answered. So I went behind this bush and I looked in that window, and there was nothing in there, no furniture. There was just a light on. And I couldn't see, to me, it appeared to be a vacant house. So I went next door to the neighbor. I said, hey, listen, I'm looking to buy a home in the neighborhood. I'm already rehabbing one, but I'm about finished, and I'm looking for another home. And that house next door appears to be vacant. Do you know anything about it? She goes, oh, yeah, that man died 2 weeks ago. He lived alone. He was divorced over 20 years ago, and he lived by himself, and he died. And I said, does he have any family? She goes, well, he has a daughter who lives in Birmingham, Alabama, and she came down for the funeral, and she went to the house, and then I guess she went back to Birmingham. And so I said, do you know how to get a hold of her? She goes, no, I don't. So I did my skip tracing, and I found her email, her phone number, and her address, and I called her. I said, hey, I was driving through this neighborhood and I saw this house I was very interested in buying. I said, would you be interested in selling that house? She goes, I can't believe my father left me that house. She goes, I saw that house and that thing needs a ton of work. So I said, well, would you like to sell it? She goes, absolutely. I said, I'll buy it in as is condition. You don't have to do nothing. And she said, make me an offer. So I emailed an offer to her for $106,000. Now the neighborhood was 275. And I was prepared to go up. I just figured I'd start low, but she accepted it. And probate had not even started yet, but the will said I leave everything I own, including my house, to my daughter. So she was the only heir. So she signed the contract. But then she still had to go through probate, but it only took about 3 months max. And then we closed. But here's why she didn't want nothing to do with it. Oh, this is after I fixed it up. But here's why she didn't want nothing to do with it. This was what she saw when she went through the house. It was nasty. And there was even some of the wiring. You could see where rats had eaten the wiring. Look at those bathrooms. There was 3 bathrooms and they all looked like this. And she was disgusted. So I fixed it up. This time I put about 60,000. I only had to replace a few wires on the electrical. The plumbing was fine. So it's basically just paint, new kitchen, new bathrooms, and floating shelves over here. This one, we have the sink under the window. We left it in the original position. And so anyway, I fixed it up and put it on the market, sold it for $275. So net profit was $136. And that's the power of the hidden market. Now, I got one more for you because this was really special. Now, I had been going to this house several times, leaving notes on the door, knocking on the door. The guy was in there, but he never would answer. So what do? I go to the neighbor. I say, do you know anything about that guy there? I said, he really needs to sell that house because, folks, this is a nice neighborhood, 375,000 at the time. And he was the only house that looked like this. All the other homes were immaculate. And so the neighbor who had an immaculate house, I said, do you actually enjoy living next door? She goes, oh, that poor man, he has diabetes. She goes, one day I saw him laying face down by the mailbox and I picked him up and carried him back to the house. And that's when I found out he had diabetes. He had sores all over his legs. And she goes, and I used to be a nurse, so I started going over there every day and treating his wounds. And I said, do you think I think he should sell that house. I'm prepared to get him a condo or an apartment because he obviously can't take care of the house. He goes, he will not sell. We've tried to talk him into it. He won't sell. He said that his mom and dad lived there, they died, and his brother and sister lived there, they died. And he goes, I'm the only one left. I have nobody. And he goes, I'm just going to stay here till I die. So she kept trying to talk him into writing a will, and he wouldn't do it. He says, I have no relatives. What's the use in writing a will? So I just gave up on it. She said, you might as well give up. There's no way he'll sell. But then a couple of months later, she called me and said, hey, I went over there and he was laying on the floor, deceased. So she goes, I don't know what's going to happen to the house now, but I just thought I'd let you know because I knew you were interested in it. So what I did is I went on my skip trace and I found his mother's sister. That was the only relative I could find, blood relative of anybody. And she was living in Colorado. This house is in Georgia. And the lady was 70 years old, but I called her and I said, hey, I guess you heard that Perry Gibson died. She goes, oh, no, I haven't. She goes, I'm so sorry to hear that. She goes, I said, well, the reason I'm calling you is because he has no living relatives except you. And I would like to buy that house and fix it up. And I said, if you apply to be the personal representative, then you'll get the money. And she goes, well, I'm about to retire, so I guess I could use the money, but there's no way I'm getting on a plane and coming to Georgia because it was right smack dab in the middle of the pandemic. So she said, I'm not going, I'm safe, I'm not going anywhere. And I said, well, I'll give you the names of 3 attorneys, probate attorneys, and you just call any or all of them, and they will get you going. And you probably won't, you'll be able to do everything by internet. So the first attorney she called, he said, yeah, I could do everything by internet. You'll never have to leave your home. And so I told her, I'll keep the grass cut. I will take care of the house. I'll go inside and get rid of all the food. I'll basically protect the house and take care of it. And there was 2 cars too. So I made sure those 2 cars, I'd start them up every now and again and make sure they're okay. Now here's what she did. She, while she was doing probate, I kept the grass cut. I trimmed all those trees down and bushes, and I kept it basically clean looking. Now, folks, I'm a firm believer in going the extra mile. There was no guarantee that I was going to get this house. But by doing these things while it's in probate, because probate is like foreclosure, other investors pursue the probate legal notices. So the reason that I do these things, not even knowing if I'm going to get the deal, is to keep my foot in the door. And sure enough, she said other people contacted her, but she said it's already sold. And I bought this house for $126,000, and I fixed it up. This because the pandemic, things were much higher. Materials were sky high, so it cost me $92,000 to fix up this house. And I put it on the market. I was going to list it on the market at $375, but my realtor said $450. I said, "What do you mean $450?" She said, "Oh, it'll sell for $450." And I said, "No, it won't." And she said, "Yeah." And she put it on the market, and sure enough, it sold for $450. But then 3 days later, the people backed out. I said, "See, I think that's too high." And she goes, "No, it ain't, because we got another offer for $450, and it's stronger than the other one." So sold the house for $450, and the net profit was $218,000. I mean, there is no other way you're going to make that much money on a house that's on the MLS or at an auction. I don't know. I've been in real estate 35 years, and I don't know any other way to make those kind of profits unless you do the hidden market. And it's going to always be like that, folks. You know, hedge funds are buying all the defaulted loans from banks. Hedge funds are buying all the repossessed houses from banks in bulk. Hedge funds are going in neighborhoods and buying every house they can get, and they're renting them out. So all of our neighborhoods are just getting flooded with rentals. And Then there's TV commercials saying we buy houses. There's billboards that say we buy houses. There's radio commercials. It is extremely competitive, but they can't touch the hidden market. They can spend millions on advertising, but you and I get deals like this just for a half a tank of gas. And that's another thing. Some people say, oh, I'm not driving through neighborhoods. Gas is expensive. Folks, would you rather spend $1 million on a TV commercial or a radio campaign? Would you rather spend 500,000 on billboards to get a bunch of useless deals? When you do that kind of marketing, a lot of your deals are somebody that may have had their home on the MLS and nobody's buying it. So they say, oh, I'm calling you. And you know, I have discovered the reason that I get great deals is because I only am interested in homes that need work. It's the only way to justify a low offer. So don't be afraid of homes that need work. They're wonderful. And you're the hero of the neighborhood because you're the one that took ugly houses like this and made them look beautiful. So they want to give you the key to the city, you know, Nobel Peace Prizes or something, you know. I mean, I don't know what all they do, but that's it, folks. So the hidden market is no competition because there's no for sale signs. There's no ads in the paper. Nobody even knows it could be bought. Here's another quick example. I had a guy who hired me. He says, Tony, I'm afraid of door knocking, but I feel comfortable with you. I will pay you to take me door knocking to people in foreclosure. I just got to have you hold my hand and show me how it's done. So I said, okay. So we're driving to a foreclosure. I mean, we plotted a course of foreclosures. And all of a sudden, we see this distressed house with a U-Haul backed into the driveway. And I said, Bill, let's stop at that house. He goes, what? Why? I said, because it's a distressed house with a U-Haul. He goes, I paid you to take me to foreclosures. You're wasting my time. I said, Bill, whenever you see a distressed house, especially with a U-Haul, you stop. So I talked him into it. We go to the guy who's loading the U-Haul. We said, hey, are you moving in or moving out? He goes, we're moving out. I said, well, would you be interested in selling this house? He said, it's not my house. I'm just a renter. I said, do you mind if Bill and I go inside and take a look around? He goes, it's not my house. Go ahead. So we went in there and I used the opportunity to teach Bill how to estimate repairs because it needed a lot of work. And I used that opportunity to show him how to inspect the property. And we estimated $26,000 in repairs. And so then we went out to the guy with the U-Haul and we said, do you have the landlord's number? And he said, yeah. So he gave it to us. And I called and it turned out it was a woman that owned it. And I told her, I said, hey, I'm over here at your rental house and I see your tenant's moving out. She goes, yeah. I said, are you going to fix it up and re-rent it or would you be interested in selling it? She goes, I was thinking about keeping on renting it. I said, well, it needs a little bit of work to get it rent ready. And she goes, how much work does it need? I said, I estimated $26,000. She goes, oh my God. She goes, I don't have that kind of money. She goes, I got divorced over a year ago. And I was living with my boyfriend. So I got that house in the divorce. So that's why I rented it out. Because I said, well, that's probably why you got divorced, because you were living with your boyfriend. And she said, well, listen, I said, would you be interested in selling it as is? And she goes, well, if I could walk away with $10,000, I'd sell it. I said, well, I've got to do some research. but I'll have an offer in your hands within 24 hours. So what happened is Bill and I went door knocking the rest of the day, and then we always do title searches on the houses we find. So this particular house only had a $58,000 loan. So I said, Bill, there's your deal. I said, I wrote an offer to take over her $58,000 loan, subject to, and I said, Bill, give her 10,000. He goes, oh my God, I can't do that. I said, what's wrong? He goes, well, it's all happened so fast. I don't know if I'm ready. And I said, look, if you don't have 10,000, I can structure the offer where you give her 10,000 after you fix it up and sell it. He goes, I've got the money. He goes, I'm just afraid. He goes, would you partner with me? And I said, well, I'm going to have to think about that. Okay, I'll partner. So I said, let's get her out of the picture. I said, let's give her 10,000. So I gave her 5, he gave her 5, and Bill and I fixed up the house. We did 26,000 in repairs. We listed the house at 149.9 with a realtor. We paid it sold for 148. We paid a 5% commission, and Bill and I split a check for 76.6. And there we are at the closing. And I said, Bill, do you remember you were mad because I told you to stop at that house? Folks, that's another hidden market opportunity. Now, here's a picture of the house. Was there a for sale sign in the yard that day? No. Was it on Craigslist? Was it on Facebook? No. Was it on the MLS? No. Did the owner know that house was for sale that day? As a matter of fact, every one of these deals I showed you, the owner did not know his house was for sale that day. So how could the hedge funds steal it from you? How could the experts in your area steal it from you? How could anybody steal these deals if the owner doesn't even know his house is for sale? That's the power of the hidden market. Okay, so I'm going to teach you how to find high profit deals that no one else knows about, how to eliminate the competition because there's no for sale signs, there's no ads in the paper, no one even knows who owns them, and you're going to be the first and only offer. Now, and also every time I go out, I find at least 6 free and clear properties. That means they have no mortgage on them. And those are great candidates to pick up rentals because you can buy them with owner financing. This particular house, I was able to buy it with owner financing. They just deeded the house to me with the promise to give them $1,000 a month for 30 years. And then I rented the house for $1,500 a month, which when I get $1,500, I'd give her $1,000, and she loved it. But she didn't want to do it for 30 years, so I did a 7-year balloon. And 7 years later, I sold the house, and I got $95,000, and she got $150,000. And there's $90,000. Okay, so what we're going to do, folks, I am doing these 3-day door knocking boot camps. Oh, by the way, I just got to tell you, the best time to go door knocking is Halloween night, because they come to the door smiling and they give you candy. So when I took my kid trick-or-treating, I only took her to foreclosures. And so she would say trick-or-treat, I'd be holding her hand, and they'd give her candy, and I get to meet the owner, and I'd say, oh, boy, you sure have a beautiful house. Would you be interested in selling it? And sometimes they'll say, well, come see me tomorrow. Let's talk. But if you're afraid of door knocking, or if you see a foreclosure that you're afraid to knock on, rent a kid or borrow one from your sister or brother and go knock on the door at 7 o'clock on Halloween night. And you'll get to meet the owner, because that's what you're afraid of, is what kind of person is going to answer the door. So Halloween night is a great time to do it. And I'm dead serious. And so there are times when I'm afraid to knock on a door. It's certain things I see about the house or the cars that makes me, I get this kind of a sixth sense that that's not going to be a good situation. And that's what I do when I do these 3-day trainings, and I hold your hand and I teach you how to talk to these people. We knock on doors, but you will also learn there's always at least one door I won't knock on, and I teach you why. Because we can call them. That particular house, instead of, knocking on the door, I can make a decision to call that person because it's so easy to get their phone number. Now, you see, there's all kinds of things you could do. Look at the car in the driveway and try to determine what kind of person drives that car. There's been some weird things happen to me when I'm doing my 3-day trainings. Here's a good example. One time we walked up to a door about to knock, and there was a stack of $100 bills this thick laying on the doorstep right in front of the door. And I was about to knock, and then I said, you know what? I think we better get out of here. And all my students were going, what? Why? What's wrong, man? We're making money on that house, and we haven't even talked to the owner yet. I said, what if he picks up the money and counts it, and it's not all there? Then that could cause a problem. So I said, to protect my students, I think this is not a good situation, because I'm very protective of you. And so that could have been a drug dealer, and somebody owed him money and probably was too scared to give it to him in person, so they left it on the front doorstep. And I just didn't want to get involved in any type of situation like that. Okay, so in these 3-day trainings, I do these all over the United States. What I do is I plot a course of 10 properties, and I take you with me, and we go door knocking. We find opportunities to inspect them, analyze them, and estimate the repairs while we're out there. We write offers. We do title searches to see if there's any liens on all the properties we find. If we go to 10 foreclosures and we find 30 hidden markets guaranteed every time. So we're getting 40 properties, and all you got to get out of that is one. If you just get one deal out of that, it was worth it. But you may get 2 or 3 if you do the follow-up. So we make the offers, and then we set up a quick sale. When I do these 3-day boot camps, any deals we find is for the class. Now, we did one in Columbia, South Carolina recently, and it was one of the foreclosures was vacant. So we called the owner, who happened to be living with his mom 50 miles away. And we said, hey, do you want to sell that house? And at first he said, nah. And I said, well, the banks have already changed the locks. And he freaked out. He goes, oh my God, I've still got all my stuff in there. He goes, how can I get it out? I said, so I told him how he could get it out. So he drove 50 miles to go over there because he freaked out when the bank had already changed the locks and winterized. So he went over there. He was able to get in. and he called me and he said, "Hey, thank you." He goes, "I was able to get in and I'm going to go ahead and get my stuff." He goes, "By the way, the house has been vandalized inside. There's spray paint, obscenities on the walls." And he goes, "They went through all my stuff." And he said, "How much would you give me for the house?" So I said, "Well, can we come over there and meet with you and see the inside? Because I'd like to see the inside first." So he stayed there and we went over there and walked through the house and estimated the repairs. So we made an offer and he accepted it. And one of the people, now what we're going to do is sell the contract. And one of the people in the class said, "I'll give the class $10,000 for this deal." Because he was a We Buy Ugly Houses franchise. And he said, "Don't sell it to another investor. I'll buy it. I'll give the class $10,000. So the class turned him down. They said, "Nah, let's fix it up so we can make more money." And the class fixed it up and put it on the market, and they made over 50,000, and each member of the class got $5,000. So otherwise they would have each got 1,000. Okay, so that's the kind of stuff we do. And also remember, I told you that when you do the hidden market, everybody wants to back you. You all know who Maria is. I think she's now a guru, but I trained her back in 2012. And I know that's a long time ago, but she is a guru. She's been on Good Morning America, and it's all because of the 3-day boot camp. It says, "Tony, I've been so afraid to quit my job and do real estate full time that I went part time for a month." She was a nurse. However, Gary and I, her husband, he's a doctor. Gary and I have so many houses under contract and undergoing rehab that I need to dedicate this as my full-time business. So Friday, I quit my job. The most amazing, scary thing is we now have other people giving us their money to partner with on these deals. Just today, I had an investor give me $170,000 to buy and rehab a house. This includes the fee I now charge for finding the deal, and then I split the profits with the investor. I never would have imagined other people would actually give me their money to do these deals. Well, it's because she is the one who finds good deals. You find good deals, you'll have the same problem she's having. And she did 28 deals in her first 3 years. And Good Morning America did a feature. They came out to see her house, her properties while she was rehabbing. They were just so amazed with her because she had 5 kids and one of them was a newborn. And she still had time to do these deals. So there's no excuse about not having time. Now, and then there's Becky. Dear real estate investor, I started working with Tony in the middle of December. Almost 4 months to the day, I deposited my first check for $20,000 with more deals underway. Since the initial training, Tony has continued to assist me at each stage of the process on every opportunity and guided me on making each offer. He happily takes my calls and or text and emails and always responds promptly with guidance. He's a trustworthy teacher who is dedicated to sharing what he has learned to help others succeed. Now, she did her first 4 deals in the same neighborhood. When she got this house, she wholesaled a property that she had under contract and got $20,000. Then she bought the house, got the house across the street under contract, sold it to the same investor for $17,000. And then she got a third deal and the investor gave her $20,000 for that contract. The fourth deal in that neighborhood, she said, "Look, I'm tired of watching you make $100,000 on these deals." So she said, I want to fix this one up myself, but I want you to loan me the money. So he did. And she made, she shared the profit with him, but she personally made about 80,000 on that. Now, when she came to the boot camp, she said, Tony, I got laid off from my job. I was making 60,000 a year. Can you guarantee that I'll make at least 60,000 a year if I take your training? I said, I can't guarantee it, but if you're willing to do what I teach you, you could make 10 times more. And so in her first year, she made 150,000 on her first 4 deals because they were all in one neighborhood. Okay, I'm doing these 3-day trainings. I got one coming up in Memphis where I take you door knocking. That's November 11, 12. I'm doing one in Washington, D.C., Virginia. We're doing both states. That's December 1st, 2nd, 3rd. Las Vegas, Nevada, January 6, 7, and 8. Los Angeles, California, January 20, 21, and 22. Atlanta, Georgia, that's where I live, February 16, 17, and 18. And Tampa, Florida was not on your list, Tom, but it's been added. And that's February 24, 25, and 26. And Houston, Texas, March. The dates have not been officially set, or San Antonio. Okay, but that's the schedule for the next couple of months. Also, you will get a home study system with 16 DVDs. You have how to do a bankruptcy deal, how to do a probate deal, how to do subject to, how to do a title search at the courthouse, how to do a title search online, how the 5 secrets of attending a foreclosure auction. So I filmed this at an auction, teaching you how to talk to the people that attend auctions. And then I have the 10 keys to success, how to do an ownership search, how to do comps, how to do each DVD has its own segment, how to plot the course, how to do all those things. And all of this home study system, there's 2 manuals, and there's a book of forms, and then there's a CD of forms you can print over and over. And this entire system is now on a thumb drive. So, because everybody says they don't own a DVD player anymore, they said they want electronic. So everything you see here is on a thumb drive. Now, so the cost is $997 to attend that 3-day training. And you click this link to get started up. Now, some of you may want to bring a spouse. So if you go to this page, you will see how you could bring a spouse with you to the training. And then there's also a bonus. I do weekly training webinars before and after the training. So your first training call will be this coming Thursday. And I do them on Thursdays usually, and they're live. And what I'm doing is, most of you that buy a home study system, you have every intent to study that system, but life gets in the way. And sometimes you just don't have enough time to study. So therefore, you're held back. You don't do anything. The reason I do those weekly webinars is I study the system with you. Because what I'm doing is taking one aspect of that system each week and force feeding it to you. And you get to ask questions. It's as if I'm studying the system with you. How many authors do you know that will study the system with you and sit down and go over it with you? That's the purpose of the training. So you'll be trained every week beforehand. And if you miss a Thursday, because if ever you have a RIA meeting on the night of the training call, you go to the meeting. That is my requirement. You must go to the meeting because every training call is recorded and I can email you the recording the next morning. So let's all get that straight. You go to the RIA meeting if ever it's on the same night as my training call. Now, I was at Tom's in DC last Thursday, so I did the training call on Tuesday. I did it the Tuesday prior to Thursday. So once in a while I change days, but just remember every training call is recorded. So, but everybody likes to be on the live training webinar because they get to interact with me and we talk about the deals you're finding. I talk about the deals I'm finding, and they're very powerful. And then once I train you by holding your hand in your backyard, I will continue to train you for a whole year on those webinars afterwards. Now, even after the year, just remember my phone number is still the same, so you can even call after the year. But think of Maria. Maria hardly ever needs to call me anymore because once she got it, she didn't need to call as much. But I just want you to know I'm available, and you can call me. If you're in the middle of a deal, you call me and I'll walk you through. As a matter of fact, Tom, there's already 2 students that signed up at the DC training that have already found deals. And today I walked them through. And I called the owners with them on 3-way. So that's what I do, folks. And prices are going up on everything. And my prices have to go up. The cost is usually $14.97. I am just going to have to, in the new year, I'm going to have to raise them to $14.97. But I'm going to keep it low for this webinar at $997. And you can attend any one of those boot camps. So you just get signed up, and we put it in writing that you will always get to attend a boot camp. Now, you're going to be in these if you live in Memphis or Reston, or you want to drive there or fly there, or Vegas or Atlanta, come to my town. I'll take you. Or if you're in Tampa, go to these trainings, folks. The market is changing. The market is slowing down, and we're not getting multiple offers. But all of us, me, Tom, Carolina, all these other people, we made our money in normal markets. And we also know how to make money in down markets and up markets. There's nothing wrong with a normal market. What we saw over the last 2 years was crazy. But you can clearly see that I still found fantastic deals when other people were getting 50 offers. And I still found hidden markets. Tom, I'm done. Do you have anything else you want to add?
Well, do you have some time for some questions?
Absolutely.
Okay, let's see what's in the chat. And folks, yeah, whatever this with the chat, it seemed to have gone from open to private. Whatever, just send me your questions. I will read them. Let me go back through what I have so far. What's the best time of day to knock on doors or to cold call them?
Well, I do it from 1 o'clock to 5 o'clock only because it meets my schedule. What you have to do, it doesn't matter if you go on a weekday or a weekend. You're gonna get the same result because I've done it on Wednesdays, I've done it on Sundays, I've done it on Saturdays, I've done it on Mondays.
Yeah.
I always get the same result.
Okay.
But you never want to do it at dark. Never knock on doors after dark.
That makes sense, except for Halloween.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
That's
Then you got to wait for dark. I'll be doing that with the kids. Cool. Carolina, you were going to say something. I cut you off. Sorry, hon. Let's see.
Hey Tony, it's Carolina. There were a lot of questions from people that have probably never seen you before. Maybe they haven't done deals yet, but they were very afraid. How do I go knocking on a door? I wouldn't go there. It's not safe. I wouldn't do it. So for all those people that have never done this, that you have been doing for so long, that I have done, can you tell them why they should not be afraid, why this works, and why they should try it?
Well, it's because of my experience, my 35 years of knocking on 400 doors a year. The reason you do it is because it's the nobody else is doing it. So one of the best ways to be successful is to do something that everybody else isn't doing. Whatever the crowd's doing, you do the opposite. And nobody wants to knock on doors, but I do. Do you know people are generally very nice, and it's the way you approach them, and it's going to make you so successful, and you're going to love it. When I do these 3-day trainings, the class loves it because I'm the one that does the talking at first, and the people are so nice. And that some people are almost offering to bring us in and feed us breakfast, And so what you're going to learn is how to talk to people. You just, you don't ever go up to someone and say, "Hey, you're in foreclosure." They're going to get mad. You've got to know how to talk to them. And plus, I teach you in different scenarios because we knock on so many doors. Like, for instance, if I see a house across the street that has a for sale sign, I'll call that number, and I always get an answering machine. So then I knock on the foreclosure, and the way I break the ice is I say, "Hi, I went over to that house over there, and I'm trying to find out how much they're asking, but I called the sign and nobody answered. Do you happen to know?" So then the people in foreclosure start telling me all about that house. And I say, "Man, I am desperately looking for a house in this neighborhood." And the foreclosure people go, "Duh, I'll sell you my house. How about that?" So there's so many things like that that I can teach you from experience to how you will never, ever make a homeowner mad. Never. And then I'll also teach you ones where I'll know that it may not be a good thing. So I'm going to teach you how not to do it. Now, one of the reasons that you need to do this is because it's what's going to work for the rest of your life. And all you have to do is learn it yourself so you can teach it to somebody else. And I had 5 door knockers at the exact same time I was knocking. And I was getting so many deals because I hired other people to do my door knocking for me. But I love it so much that I just can't quit. I just keep doing it. But you can hire other people, but you need to go with me to learn how to teach them to grow your business.
Awesome. Tony, when you mentioned I like the idea because I'm going to do that with my son.
Yeah.
I might have joined you on one of the at one of the trainings. So the legal notices you mentioned earlier, they're in the newspaper. There's certain newspapers in different regions that carry them. One of the questions, where do you source them? One of the easy ways is to ask your jurisdiction, what do you have to do if you're in probate? Just almost like pretend you have a probate to handle. There's a pamphlet for it, and they have the pamphlet online. It'll show you everything that needs to be done, where the legal notices need to be run, all of that. If you're in foreclosure, where the legal notices need to be run, and it's usually 3 weeks in a row, so three editions in a row, and you can find all of that by going to the jurisdiction and saying, "Hey, this is the situation I'm in. What do I need to do?" And they give you guides to that process. Let's see, what else do we have here? What do you write on the notes you leave on the door? This is a question from Lori.
Well, I just write things like, "Hey, I love the style of your house. and I wanted to know if you'd be interested in selling it. They think we're talking about Cape Cod, ranch or whatever, but the style I love is it looks like crap. But I don't tell them that. I just say, I love the style of your house. You see, Tom, if you and I were standing at a 7-Eleven food store and we're standing in front talking, and all of a sudden this big, mean Hell's Angels biker comes pulling up to the right in front of us, and he looks scary. If I went up to him and said, man, I love your bike, would you be interested in selling it? It makes him feel good.
Yeah.
So you have to do the same when you're door knocking. You have to say something that just hits them with good feelings. And that's what I'm good at, and that's what I can teach to you. Now, that biker may not want to sell his bike, but he won't be mad that we ask him. He'll feel good. He'll say, man, I'm glad you like it, but I like it too.
That works. Let's see. Do you have any plans to be out in Seattle?
No, I don't. But is there someone from Seattle?
Yeah, I think we have a couple people on. Like Corey was asking that question specifically.
Yeah, I used to go there, but I guess the Investors Club, they sort of fizzled out, or they're meeting, and they're not meeting at hotels now. I think they're meeting at restaurants and stuff.
No, I was just there a month ago, so I think they're still around. So it'd be good.
Okay. Well,
Okay.
I haven't been asked.
Okay, that's cool. Then we'll work it that way. Hang on, I guess we seem to have an issue with the chat's not turning on. All right, gang, if you have a question, I don't see anything else in my chat, but I'm assuming there probably are some. Go ahead and unmute the kind of a way of raising your hand. So, because it seems like some people are able to chat and some people can't. I don't know what's going on, guys. So, apologies. Yeah, Corey, jump into Tampa. That'd be fantastic, because learning in one spot, it's the same in another spot. Everyone has a house, and it doesn't specifically matter where you learn it, as long as you learn it. Okay, let's unmute if you have a question and say hi. Let's try it that way, since I can't get the chat to work. Any specific questions for Tony?
While they're thinking, I just want to mention, Tom, that everybody who's ever taken the training, they have discovered that $997 just keeps on producing. It's a infinite rate of return on that investment. Think, like, just an example is Maria. 28 deals in 3 years, and now she's doing deals and bigger deals, and that $997 just keeps producing. So what a fantastic investment that is. And then your children, you could teach them to do it. I'm teaching my 24-year-old daughter the business, so she'll be doing it for years.
That's absolutely. Hang on, I'm trying to process things. Guys, I don't know why the general chat's not working. You can direct message me, because some people are, so it should be that's one way around it. And if you're able to unmute yourself, let's try that as well. Again, I don't know.
Raise your hand.
Yeah, or raise your hand and I'll see if I can unmute you. Must be one of those Zoom's changed some things on us now. Let's see what happens. Corey's asking, how do you track your rough? So I think it's probably, how do you track your rate? How do you track your route? I bet is what he means to say. How do you track the route that you go through, Tony?
I just copy and paste addresses into MapQuest.
Okay.
And it looks like Diane has a question. She was raising her hand.
Diane, are you able to unmute? If not, let me see if I can.
At least I think she was raising her
Force
hand.
you off of mute. Mm-hmm.
Where do you find the foreclosures?
In the
Finance.
legal notices, and Tom just also told you how, but the legal notices come out in your either your daily newspaper, like for instance in my county they come out in the Daily Journal, but in Fulton County, which is where the city of Atlanta is, they come out in a special law newspaper down at the courthouse. So it could be a law paper, but I would recommend you call your main newspaper and say, do you publish foreclosure legal notices? And they'll probably say, no, we don't, because so and so does. And they'll tell you the name.
Thank you.
You know, while I'm waiting, Tom, there was one guy. Oh, Tom, you're muted. Did you know that? It looked like your lips.
That would be me. I was saying something.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Nothing tech issues. That in that case, it was my fault. I didn't click the right button. Go ahead. You were saying.
Let's see. What was I saying? Oh, yeah. Sometimes one of my students will just be so afraid. They'll find a great opportunity and they'll be so afraid to make an offer. So I have been known to make an offer for them in my name and actually go to closing and still give them the check just to get them going. Now, I can't promise. I mean, I would never do that more than once for a student, but if that's what it takes, I would do. I'm willing to do those type of things. And,
Gotcha.
and you know, you just can't help but be successful when you have people like that that are willing to help.
Absolutely. So, price is going up, which is because I think it's very it's low priced for what it is. I know because I know what it is, and it's awesome with the 3-day training with actual door knocking and carpooling around there. I think that's awesome. So definitely lock in, because even if you attend next year, you're locking in that price now, which is terrific. And let's see, anyone else have any specific questions for Tony? If not, I popped the link in there one more time. You can hit that. That page also has all the dates, including Tony. I added the other one in Tampa that you had on there. So
Okay.
that all the dates are on there now. You can lock in, and then you can attend anyone you want. Tony's office will be in touch with you to say, you know, which one are you attending.
And then we'll mail the system.
Yes, and because you get your email, the system will be sent to you right away as well. So Tony will have everyone.
Yeah. First thing tomorrow. And and like I say, folks, you'll start getting trained right away, because your first training webinar will be this Thursday. And like the people in DC, right after the investors meeting, they went out looking for those type of properties and they found some good ones. So I've already been talking to owners for them and helping them, because you could probably get a deal before that you even attend the 3-day training. So you just can't beat it, folks. And what a great time. Wouldn't you like to get a nice big fat check right before Christmas so you can give it all away to your family members?
Big fat checks before Christmas are perfect. So
Yeah.
Tony, even if they can't attend one event, let's say they can't attend one of the events or can't attend one of the events before Christmas, there's still enough in the system that you're sending to get out there and get moving.
Yeah.
And ongoing trainings.
Well, you know, even if they don't attend the training before Christmas, what I'm saying is if they find a deal, I will walk them through.
Gotcha.
And they could get a deal before that.
Gotcha. Hey, and Brian's asking, would it be trespassing to knock on someone's door?
Well, it could be. If you ever see a no trespassing sign, don't even go near the house. If you see a no solicitor sign, don't go near the house.
Right.
There's other ways to contact them, you
Yep.
know.
But aside from the signs, there's no, which is the legal statement they don't want you there. Otherwise, it's okay to approach a front door. That's what the front door is for. That's what the doorbell's for, right? People can approach your front door and knock as long as it's not listed no trespassing or no soliciting.
Right,
Yeah, nothing illegal about knocking on the door.
right.
And trespass is usually when you're told to leave and do not as well. So let's see, Rhonda Lake's asking, how do some homeowners respond when you knock on their doors with a bunch of students?
Well, they respond good, but there's things you can do to help them have a better response. Like I painted my car to say Publishers Clearinghouse. So they they come to the door thinking they just won some money, you know. So you can paint your car to say something like Florida State Lottery or something. No, I'm being funny, but what I do is I always have something very kind to say. It's just remember the biker metaphor. If you went up to the biggest, meanest Hells Angels biker and said, I love your bike, would you be interested? They're going to feel good that you love their house, but they'll just kindly say, well, I appreciate that, but no, I'm not interested in selling. But if you approach them in an aggressive way, you know, I've had so many homeowners that tell me, you know, you are so non-threatening. So that's why they want to talk. I mean, that's why they'll open up. And one other trick that I've always noticed that works is when they open the door, you have direct eye contact because that builds trust.
Yeah.
And I've had people come to the door standoffish, like, what do you want? Get out of here. But when I look them dead in the eye and make eye contact and I say, I love your house, would you be interested in selling it? They just sort of lighten up. That eye contact is magical.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Very nice. And when you have students with you on these events, I think that's specifically what Rhonda was after. When you have students with you, is it too much of a group? Or, I mean, you know, other than thinking they can Publishers Clearinghouse check.
Yeah. No, what we do is I only take 2 people to each door.
Gotcha.
So the rest of us hang out down the street and I take 2 people and we go to the door. And then the next house we go to, which are usually 3 or 4 in that neighborhood, I take 2 different people.
Different 2 people. Okay. That works. Awesome. All right. Let's see. Any other questions, guys? If not, I'm going to be respectful of time because I see that it's a tick past 9 o'clock. So, Tony, anything else we should know or add? I think it's a really cool, awesome system. I think it's a ridiculously nice training to be able to go with you in a small group fashion like that and actually be in the field, actually knocking on doors and learning how it's done very much on the front lines like that.
Well, I got to tell you, Tom, the reason that I continue to do it is because you can see from tonight the kind of deals I get, $100,000 plus. There's no other method of, you know, going to the MLS or to an auction to make that kind of profit. And it's because we're approaching people with no for sale signs and we're doing something nobody else wants to do. And I'll teach you how to do it safely. And what you learn is 50 times worth the cost. And you know, Tom, people say, I paid $70,000 to go to some of those big training seminars. And I didn't even learn as much as I learned in your 3-day training. And they say, why do you do it so cheap? And it's because I make $100,000 on a deal. I don't need to charge 70,000 to teach you how to get a deal.
That works. Now let's see what else for the course. Is it in person or online and sometime in person? It's both. You're getting a course. This is from Luciana. You're getting the course and you're also getting the in-person time. Isn't that correct, Tony?
Yes, and also the weekly training webinar.
Yes, along with weekly training webinars. So you're extremely well supported through the process.
Yes, each one of those. Just the webinars are worth $9.97 and beyond. Just the home study course is worth that much. And just the 3-day training is easily worth that much. And, it cost a lot of money for me to fly to these cities. Airfare is higher and hotels are higher. But you're getting a great deal. And that's just the very first good deal in the hidden market. And then all the deals you get after that will be good deals.
Okay, then I think we're in good shape. So let's see. Anything else? I think we're looking good. Sorry, guys, when I go through the chat, it's my eyes are playing nothing but games with me lately. Does Mr. Tony have any social platforms we could follow? You hang out on social media much, Tony?
I just never was a fan because I see my wife and daughter and they spend all their time on there. So that to me, I'd rather be doing other things.
I got you. So this is the spot to find Tony is live and in person, and it's much better than just bouncing around on social media. Plus, honestly, Tony, people ask me, why aren't you on social media more? I don't look good in the bikini. I don't think you can either. No offense.
That's funny.
I don't need to be popping up on people's feeds that way. So good. All right, guys. Well, look, going to wrap it up. I'm going to pop that link back in the chat. What's going to happen now is I'm going to thank Tony for coming and being here and doing this presentation for everyone. I'm going to, I'll mute off, but I'm going to leave the chat open for a little while so I can clear out any other private messages that came through. Carolina is going to do the same. Hit that link now before that price goes up because Tony's keeping it nice and tame at the time. A lot of people saying thank you now, Tony. It'd be awesome. Playback, we're going to work on a playback. Tony told me before he's willing to let it out there for a few days. We're not going to leave it out there, endlessly. Usually takes the team a couple days to process it, so probably by Thursday, and then it'll just be up through the weekend, and then we'll take it down. So again, only spot to get Tony would be right here, right now. So use that link that I popped in the chat, and we'll take it from there. So Tony, thanks, appreciate it. Awesome work. Great teaching everyone a really critical skill. Everything, the foundation of our entire business is based on the marketing. If you don't learn to find the motivated sellers, you don't have anything, right? Everything else you can learn, and everything else doesn't wind up meaning anything if you don't actually find the properties. And like when Tony's walking through the neighborhood going, that's a property, let's go up and make it into a deal. That's really something, particularly when it's not on the market. So you don't have that competition. It's not on the MLS. It's not, 100 people looking at it. It's you. That's the skill that's going to set us apart and move us ahead.
Yeah, Tom, that just reminded me, I got to say one more thing. Is you see in the RIA meetings that you guys teach, you have different techniques and different topics. But all the techniques and topics that you guys bring into the RIA, you have to have properties to apply those techniques to. And the hidden market is where you find 30 or 40 properties every week. Some are free and clear, so you can apply one technique. Some are probate situations, so you apply that probate. Some are foreclosure properties, so you apply that technique. And you'll have plenty of properties to always apply different techniques to. And that's the beauty, it's just, it's what everybody wants. That's why we go to these RIA meetings, is to learn techniques to buy real estate and to build wealth. Thank you.
Awesome, Tony. Thanks again. And I'll clear out the chat, gang. So I'm gonna we'll say goodbye to Tony. Thanks very much. I'm gonna mute off. Like I said, I'll leave the Zoom open for a few minutes so we can process things through. And go ahead. I'll pop that link back in there as well, so you have it. And get signed up, and we'll talk to you again soon, Tony. Thanks.
Okay, well, thank you, and thank you for everybody being here. Thank you, Tom and Carolina, for having me, and you guys have a fantastic night.
Cool. You, Tony. Thanks.
Tom,
Yeah.
you tell them that if they go ahead and sign up tonight, I will give them my personal list of REO departments, contact departments, which, because it's close to the end of the year and the banks have to get rid of, I've got a Excel spreadsheet of all the banks' REO departments and their emails and phone.
Oh, perfect. Beautiful. All right, another great list of work. All right, so we'll throw that in as a bonus as well, guys. Hit that link, tractionrea.com/Tony. You'll get Tony's home study course, the weekly webinars, the in-person 3-day door knocking training in the field with Tony, showing you how to do it, and you'll get the list of the bank REO departments. Awesome.
Okay. Thank you,
Right.
everyone.
Sounds good.
Thank
Thanks, Tony, and thanks everyone for being here. We'll, like I say, I'll wrap it up. If you have anything else popping in the chat right now, this will stay open for a few minutes, and then we'll talk to you guys all again soon. It's Tom Z with Traction Real Estate Investors Association signing off.